Good evening, everyone. I am so excited to be here with you this evening on Stories That Inspire Us. My name is Janice Malillo. And before we came on live, I was just filling Stephany in on the AT&T power outage going all over, but we're going to forget about that because I know that the internet gods and everything are in our favor this evening. Sometimes there's a lot of people know that I connect with my guests, obviously through my website. They fill out, of course, a guest registration, and we do a little quick pre-podcast chit chat. And I really connected with Stephany. She just has this amazing attitude on life. And let me just tell you a little bit about her before I do the formal introduction. She is the recipient of the Governor's Award for Advocacy with survivors of domestic violence. She's an international best-selling author who has triumphed over narcissistic abuse. She is beyond an extraordinary woman, and she's an attorney. I am so excited to welcome to the Stories podcast my guest, Stephany Ann. Welcome, Stephany. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, and it really is an honor to be on your show today. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And of course, we are also simulcasting through Twitter, now known as X. I want to dive right on into your story because I think it's really multifaceted in so many different ways. You're an attorney, I'm a paralegal, but I want to go back a few years to when you find yourself as a strong woman in a situation which you probably didn't expect. Can you take us a little bit back to where your story begins?
Yeah, I had just finished traveling the world. I got a full ride to university, and I had all these big, grand plans for my life. I was very aligned and in tune with what I wanted to do. And then I met the man who would become my first husband. And, at the time, I didn't know, he was pretty much my first real boyfriend. And we fell in love. He was great. He was wonderful. And really during that idealization phase, he put me up on this pedestal. He became my best friend. He told me everything I wanted to hear. And it was great until we got married and I went to law school. And then that's when everything changed. And so, that was my first husband, and I was with him for 14 years. And then he spent about 6 years using the legal system to further the abuse. And then I met my second husband. I thought I was healed. And my second husband was, again, wow, everything I could have ever imagined in a man. Beautiful, everything I wanted. I mean, I made the list. I put it out in the universe. And a week later, I meet him. So, when he starts to say things like, oh, you're my soulmate. Well, I believed that. And then again, I found myself ensnared, in these like narcissistic abusive relationships and marriages. But at the time, you don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
And even my background being in domestic violence, remember 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago in domestic violence, we were focused on physical violence. We weren't focused on psychological and emotional abuse. And so for me, here I am, I just went through 14 years of one marriage. I didn't consider myself a victim because he was not physically violent. It was off. I didn't know that, it didn't feel right. He was a cheater. He spent all the time cheating and having affairs. But how many of us do that? How many of us put cheating over on one side and abuse on the other side? We just call them cheaters and leave it at that. And so no one even told me, oh, Stephany, you were psychologically and emotionally abused. I didn't know I was.
Stephany, let me
And
ask
so,
you, and I'm sorry to kind of interrupt you there. You used the word everything. And I think that's a powerful word when you meet somebody and you have that um that magnetism with them, and you would mention too that he was saying the things that you were hearing, but were you a lot of people when they look back, they say, but was I really listening? Do you think you were listening, or were you just maybe in that realm where this is great and it's going to continue to be great?
yeah, it was a little bit of both. So if we're to understand what a narcissist is, let's unpack this real quickly. So a narcissist is someone with a disordered personality. They have this grandiose sense of self-importance, this preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited wealth and power and beauty. They believe that they are so unique and so special, and they can only be understood by you. You are the only person that has ever got them. You get them. Um, they have this excessive need for admiration and adoration. They want to be fawned all over. And they have a sense of entitlement, and just they're just very arrogant and ego driven. So when you see all those traits, you would think, well, this is a very secure, confident person, right? But they're not. They have the most fragile ego. They are so sensitive. They are so wounded, so hurt from so many layers of protective self. So that's kind of the overview. And
Mhm.
so when they get into a relationship, it's all about power and control. And and within that, similar to the cycle of domestic violence, there is phases. So the first phase is the idealization, then there's the devaluation, and then there's the discard. So when you are in the idealization phase, they are wonderful and perfect. They will tell you every lie because they become whoever they need to become to be with you. And so many people say, well, didn't you see the red flags? Didn't you think that there was something wrong? I didn't. Because again, the narcissists are, they're charismatic. They are charming. They are beautiful people. They know how to work a room. And now they want to give you their attention. Who
Hmm.
doesn't want to feel wanted and special and important? They put you on this pedestal and they almost worship you. They want to know everything about you. They are the best listeners. I remember telling my girlfriends because they would be like, "Oh, it's so hard to get a guy to open up and communicate." I'm like, "Well, not for me. They want to talk. They want to hear my stories. They want to know what happened in my past." My second husband was very interested in my relationship with my first husband. They want to know your insecurities, and they're there and they listen. And so you do believe that you have found the perfect match for you. But really, what they are doing, they are mirroring you. They're mirroring your values, they're mirroring your hobbies. You essentially fall in love with yourself, but you don't know that until later on.
So, if I'm understanding this correctly, the red flags, and when you're going through the situation, you said that you really didn't see them. I wonder if when you're going through that, and I'm on my second marriage. I've been married, this is my second marriage, and we've been married for 9 years. Love of my life. I, of course, look back on my first marriage and wonderful husband and excellent father. I have to say that. And then things for him and I weren't that great. But I think when we look back on different things, we maybe see things within ourselves we didn't realize. Like, was I, feeding into the red flags? Like, was I looking more at it like a bouquet of roses versus the red flags? Like, and to mirror the image which you were describing. So, mirroring the image where you, it's almost a duplicate of yourself. I wonder, like, that
Yeah.
just must have been so
So they become it. It's not confusing in the beginning, because in the beginning you believe everything they're saying. You're believing because they become whomever they need to become to be with you. And so, I looking back, I can say, well, he was an alcoholic and he drank vodka, but he hid it, and it's hard to smell vodka.
Mhm.
And I wasn't looking for that because he said he wasn't. And so, you trust him. So, but I can say now, red flags would be if it's too good to be true. It probably is too good to be true. The legal term caveat emptor, right? It's too
Mhm.
good to be buyer beware. And and putting you on a pedestal, and just when things progress so intensely, so rapidly, so quickly, those to me are now red flags.
Wow.
But you don't really see a lot of that because they're so good at hiding and manipulating and becoming someone else during that first phase. And that first phase can last until they get you hooked, till they get you to till you fall in love with them, or you get pregnant, or you move in with them. And now it's like, well, I don't have anywhere else to go, or you become financially dependent on them for whatever reason. And so this phase can last for anywhere for a couple weeks, a couple months, even up to a couple of years. But then the thing is that they can't pretend forever, and the mask comes off. And then this is when the devaluation happens. And in the devaluation, this is where the confusion starts, because you're like, wait a second, you told me you loved all my girlfriends. You love that I'm an attorney and I'm a strong, powerful woman. You love that I vote this way or that, and then it's all of a sudden it's the complete opposite.
Wow.
And this is when you'll hear people say, well, they have this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde personality. And again, remember, we're dealing with a disordered personality.
Mm.
Narcissism is a disordered personality. And so when the mask comes off, the devaluation begins, the manipulation begins, and the gaslighting begins. And gaslighting is a word that is used a lot these days, but let
Mm.
me tell you what it means. Gaslighting is when you manipulate another person into doubting their perceptions, experiences, or understanding of events. It's emotional abuse. It's coercive control by someone you trust. And And gaslighting helps the abuser avoid any responsibility and blame. They shift it by making you doubt what just happened. So it is an intentional lie to deceive and to confuse you. It's intentional. A lot of people say, well, they're narcissists. They don't know. They've been hurt and wounded. They're not aware. No, it's intentionally lying and deceiving to confuse you. So you're a paralegal, you get it. You know that there are elements, right? Intent is the first element. And so they will even say, they'll call you names, they'll insult you, they'll make fun of you, they'll criticize you. And so some common phrases are, no one will believe you if you tell them. If you leave me, don't expect me to stick around. I'm not going to come back. If you call the cops, I'm not going to be here waiting for you. Our relationship's over. Can't you take a joke? I was just
Mm.
being sarcastic. You're so sensitive. Don't take everything so personally. And my second ex-husband's favorite one, as he would look at his watch and say, you're going to start your period tomorrow. This is why you're acting like a bitch today. And so they shift everything and leave you confused. And then you start questioning your own sanity. Did that really happen? Was I overreacting? What just happened? And so what happens with all of this, it creates this thing called cognitive dissonance, a fog. This is the confusion. And so they will do that, and then they'll come back and be really kind and nice. That's the love bombing. So maybe they might go pout for a day. They or 2 days or 3 days, they'll go lock themselves in the bedroom, or they'll just leave the house and not come back for 3 days. And then they know that you are going to feel upset when they're gone, right? You're going to be emotional because, like, what just happened? What, I don't understand what just happened, and what did I do? So then we internalize it as victims here. And this is where we start to change. We become someone that we weren't. We try to become all these different people because the mask has come off. And so it's like, who do we need to become to get that first guy back that we fell in love with?
Oh my
Do
gosh.
I need to lose 10 pounds? Do I need to go get some new clothes? Like, am I messing up on dinners? So then we become expert chefs because, is that why they're acting like this? Because they'll never tell you directly. They'll only tell you in gaslighting ways.
I would say that
And then,
a lot of psychological warfare with that, because I'm thinking, as you're describing all of this, they have to know in their head, and again, it comes from the narcissistic behavior as you were describing, and then, the gaslighting. You would think that somebody, and I'm just talking off topic in a sense, that they are aware, obviously, of what they're doing, because if they are that smart to turn the tables around, make you self-doubt, make you, as you said, they might leave, and then they know that you're going to be upset, and they feed off of that. That is one heck of an ego trip for a narcissistic person. I can't even fathom what you went through.
and that's why it's power and control. It's domestic violence. If you are reacting from an emotional place, they have controlled your reactions. And it feeds into their ego. It feeds into their low self-esteem. When they feel like they are hating themselves, they need to do something to make you feel like a horrible person too. That way they can feel better.
Mm.
And so, maybe they're gone for a couple days, or they're giving you the silent treatment for a couple days, and then all of a sudden they bring you flowers, or they just show back up and swoop you off your feet and pretend like nothing ever happened, and you are just sitting there like, what is going on? And you
Yeah.
can't have conversations with them because they will turn everything into something else. I remember it was just such a nightmare trying to have a conversation with both my ex-husbands, because it was just around and around and around. They just keep you going around on this Ferris wheel, and hours later you're like, I don't even know what is happening here. It's a mind game. And so, when you have this intermittent reinforcement of the devaluation, then the love bombing, the devaluation and the love bombing, all this intermittent reinforcement creates a trauma bond.
Oh my
And
goodness.
for the people who don't know what a trauma bond is, it's very similar to Stockholm syndrome, right? Stockholm syndrome, the classic case is someone has been kidnapped and they fall in love with a kidnapper. They have a baby with them. They don't want to prosecute them. They love them. They make excuses for them. It's a trauma bond.
Mm.
And so I like to explain a trauma bond as a drug addiction. So when you use a drug, the first time you use it, you have this really high dopamine release. And it's great. It's wonderful. And so then you come down and you use again. But every time you use, you don't get that same dopamine release. It becomes less and less and less. But you keep using because you want that reward. You know it's going to be good. And so similarly with the intermittent reinforcement, you can ask victims, well, why do you stay? Why don't you just get out? Why don't you just leave? It's because of the addiction. The trauma bond keeps them addicted in the cycle. And so we stay because we think, if I can just change all these things about me, maybe I can get the guy that I fell in love with in the beginning, in the idealization phase. I want him back. He's in there. He knows how to love me. He knows how to treat me well. He's my best friend. He's all these things. So who do I need to become to get him back? And so you stay.
Wow.
But what happens over time is that the positive starts to become less, just like the dopamine release, with a drug addict. It becomes less, and now the negative gets more. And if you stay in these relationships for a long time, um, it becomes even more harmful to you, because now you doubt yourself. They will tell you that no one will believe you. They will call you the narcissist. They will tell you that you're the bipolar one. You're the one that has a disordered personality. And it just, again, the cognitive dissonance, the fog, you just live in this fog
Mhm.
because you've been conditioned. You have been brainwashed. Your brain has been reprogrammed to just react to whatever they're doing. And so this goes on until either you decide that you have worthiness within you and you're done playing this game and you leave, which is very hard to do, or you get discarded. And this is what the majority of the cases are. It's when the narcissist is exactly what it sounds like. You're thrown away like a piece of garbage. They're done. You either are used up, you've become the robot that they've created, but you're not fun anymore. You're not playing the game right anymore. So they'll leave you. Or they'll just detach from you emotionally, physically, all this stuff, and you're just another person in the house.
Oh my goodness.
So
S- uh, Stephany,
it's
you
not fun.
know, I just can't even fathom what you've been through and what so many other women have been through. I know that there are so many women still out there that are struggling. What are some things that you can share with them that you've learned from your experience? Obviously, you're an attorney, so you have a couple different viewpoints on from a legal standpoint, of course, and from a personal standpoint. What are some things that you can share with them that might kind of bring them out to a point where they can accept that now they're finally seeing those red flags and that they need to do something.
Yeah, like I said, when you've been trauma bonded here, it is very similar to being an addict. And I even remember saying that to both of my husbands. I feel addicted to you, and I don't know why. And so, if you look at it from that point of view, then when you leave, it is just like quitting a drug. How do you detox? And so, people in your life, you want to reach out to people who you trust and people who will support you. And friends, if any friends are watching the show, how can you help someone? You tell them that you are there for them. You support them. You don't preach to them because they're not going to listen to you. Someone, again, think of it as a drug addict. But let them know that you are a safe person and you are a safe house. And when they are ready, you're always going to be here waiting for them. If you're still in the relationship, you have to get out. It's not going to get better. You cannot change them. We cannot love them enough to change them. They will not change. Less than 2% of narcissists will actually become self-aware and deal with their traumas. And even if you were to wait for them, they probably aren't the person that you fell in love with. There's someone else buried very deep within them. But we cannot fix them. We cannot heal them. We cannot love them to death, to change. You can only focus on you, and you need to get out because it will get worse. And this is from speaking from my own experience and also speaking from an attorney. It will get worse. And if they cannot control you psychologically and emotionally, they will resort to physical violence. And so get out now. I also hear many women say, I'm staying because we have children and I don't want to be the one responsible for breaking up the family. Well, the narcissist will alienate the children from you. And I've heard this over and over and over again. This means that they will manipulate the children to the point where the children will think you are the abusive person, you are the one with a disordered personality, there is something wrong with you, or you were the cheater, and they will blame you for destroying the family because the narcissist is very, very good at what they do. So I have a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old boy from my first husband, and I have a 2-year-old from my second husband. I always told them about their father's behavior. This is what he's doing. This isn't right. This is not how we treat people. And so because of that, he wasn't able to manipulate them to hating me because I was always open and honest. But we also got a divorce when the boys were little and they lived with me full time. I got full custody of them. Go for full custody. You want full custody because if you don't control your kids, if you don't guide and are there for your children, they will be manipulated and controlled. Find out what they want, negotiate. My ex-husband wanted to move an hour and a half away to be with his new supply. I said, sure, sign over custody. And he did because he wanted his new supply more than he wanted his children.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it was a nightmare. They will, if you have children, be prepared for a long drawn out battle, maybe. They love frivolous litigation. They love to get you in court because it gets you worked up again, and it is a way for them to continue to control you. Because again, It's power and control here. Like get out, because even if it is so much better and you're getting out for you. But going back to the kids, one other thing I wanted to say was that um, many women, stay because of the kids. They're trying to protect the kids. Um, the kids know more than we give them credit for. They see more, they feel more, they can feed off the energy of the house and everything that's going on. So be open and honest with your kids. Explain everything at a level that they can understand, but they need to know that their father's behavior is not acceptable. And these are the reasons why. And if you do choose to stay and you don't have these conversations with your children, you are teaching them, you are modeling them to them that it is okay to treat you this way. When I left my second husband, I had 3 stepsons. I had 6 boys under the age of 14. And actually the 14-year-old had just turned 15 when I left. And right before I left, about a couple days before I left, I took him out to lunch and we were talking. And the first thing he said to me in the car was, "Why do you let my dad treat you the way he treats you?" And
Wow.
then he told me that then he went and a very long story about all the things that his dad did to his mother.
Wow.
Kids know. So don't stay for the kids. You leave for the kids and you leave for you. That is why you leave. And then you go no contact. You have to, it's the detox. You have to cut off everyone. You have to cut off him or her. I mean, there are female narcissists as well. You cut off all social media, change your phone number. I changed my phone number and I had to get a new phone. Well, and he destroyed my phone. Um, but change your phone number, change your email, block them on everything, go no contact, and get as far away as you can legally. I mean, in law, in family law, there's every state has the domicile rule, which means you can't move more than 60 miles without permission from the judge. But if you do it all before you file, I mean, you can do that. I moved 3,000 miles away and filed in a different state.
Wow.
So you have to protect yourself. And the only way to protect yourself is to go no contact, because then that also sends a message to the abuser that they can't hoover you back, that you're not playing this game and you are done. My second husband, I actually divorced. I filed for divorce and got a restraining order against him in 2020. And I was hoovered back. His mother kept calling me, "Stephany, he's changed. He loves you. He misses you. He made a mistake. He's sorry. Will you please just talk to him?" I didn't know what I knew. If I knew what I know now, I would have saved myself extra heartache. But it was 2020. It was so confusing. We got married in December 2019. The world shut down and his mask came off, and so it was like simultaneously. I
Wow.
didn't know. It was very confusing, because how I explained all the gaslighting and all this stuff, but it's like that's happening right when the world shuts down. Perfect timing, right? And so I didn't know what was actually truly his behavior and what was just the heightened craziness of 2020. I mean, everything seemed crazy and out of control and just ah. And so, when I did separate from him, I was struggling because I didn't know, did I do everything right? Like, I mean, this is where the gaslighting comes in. Am I imagining what happened? Was it really that bad, or was it 2020? You know, we start justifying and making excuses for behavior.
Mm.
And so, you know, when we got back together, he was perfect. He was back, it was back to that idealization phase for 3 months. And then it was a mess.
Wow. Now you received the governor's award for advocacy. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, how did all of that
Yeah,
come up?
well, that actually was a while, several years ago when I got that award. But that was so, you know, I was working at the prosecutor's office and working with victims of domestic violence, and I remember at the time, you know, again, we're not focused on psychological and emotional abuse. We're focused on physical violence. And I just remember how challenging it was working with victims of domestic violence, because they would recant, but they would tell us that you put me on the stand and I will lie.
Whoa.
And and you know, the Constitution said you have a constitutional right to face your accuser, right? And if you can't get a victim up there on the stand to testify, or they're going to flat out lie, and all you have is he said, she said, and some hearsay police reports and stuff, it's like, how do we prosecute these cases? It was so frustrating. And then we started a domestic violence response team with law enforcement, and so we were like one of the first states to actually do this. And so we said, well, okay, so let's meet the victim right at the scene of the crime and get their story and get all the information before they start recanting. So then
Mm.
we would show up, and I was part of that team, the domestic violence response team. So I would get the call from dispatch saying that there's a domestic, and I would go and meet the officers there, and then talk with the victim, and try to get the story before they recanted, and give them all the information. But you know, I didn't know about a trauma bond. I didn't know about the love bombing back. You know, there's certain things that we just didn't fully know and understand, until I was in it. And now it makes sense now of why they're recanting, because um, you know, they're being called and told to to drop it, drop the charges, drop this, go talk to the prosecutor, get it dropped. My ex-husband did this to me. Get the charge, get the restraining order dropped, Stephany, drop it. It's you've fabricated. That's not what happened. I was just trying to, you know, grab the cell phone, not trying to smash and break it, you know, like and then you become like, ah, did I make this up? You know, it's the gaslight. It's very, very confusing. And
I
this is why I share my story, because we need to talk about this.
and I so appreciate your real your candor, your authenticity, and really sharing your emotions with that. And as you were, chatting about it, and about when you said, I didn't know. Do you forgive yourself for not knowing? Like, are you at that point in your life?
Yeah, you know, yeah. So, you know, you have to, when you leave these relationships, it is as if you've been brainwashed. And so you really have to do the hard work of reprogramming your mind, reprogramming your subconscious mind, your brain, all of this stuff. And so for me, when I was able to make the shift from not seeing them as monsters trying to destroy my life, but actually as what if, let's just play this game, what if they were teachers here to teach me these very powerful lessons? And what are these lessons? And so when I was able to make that shift, then I could forgive them and I could forgive me. Because up until then, I was the victim. I didn't do anything wrong. Just all this crap just kept happening to me. And they were destroying my life. And all of this stuff kept happening because of them. And you really have to forgiveness. There's so many people who are like, well, I'm not gonna forgive them. I can't forgive them. They destroyed my life. They did all of this stuff to me. I get that because my two ex-husbands did that to me. But forgiveness is not about them per se. Forgiveness is setting yourself free. And so I really like the Hawaiian hopo'ono
Yes.
um, forgiveness thing, and so I would do that every night because it's like I would say something and it's like, well, God, I have to forgive them again. Because forgiveness is also a continual process of releasing them. I release them from me. But something I didn't realize until I was talking with a friend just a couple weeks ago was that he told me, he's like, Stephany, I know you've forgiven them and you've forgiven yourself, but you also need to forgive and release them on behalf of your children. So I'm still very angry for what they had done to my children. And we didn't really get into this, but my first husband committed suicide a couple months ago. And it's like, and so, it's like 14 years of hell with him, and then 6 years of post separation abuse, and then he just freaking kills himself and gets out of it easily and it's like the final manipulation. Like he can't be held responsible for anything. And so I was very angry with him for what he did to the boys. I have a 12-year-old. It's not that he was a great person, but he was still their father, and I didn't want their father to die. I at least wanted him to become aware and work on himself.
Mhm.
And um, but parts of me think, it's all just speculation, but parts of me think that maybe he was, and he was just so overwhelmed with the guilt and the shame of everything that he did that he just couldn't handle it. And he thought committing suicide was the best option for him at the time. But,
Wow.
it just, whatever he did, it just, I was very angry for a long time. I was happy because, mixed emotions. I was glad that the abuse stopped for me, but angry with him for going that route and for the boys. And so
Mhm.
I really had to release that anger and forgive him on behalf of the boys, of my children.
Stephany, it sounds like you have risen to greater heights, which leads me to your participation in an amazing anthology. I haven't had the pleasure of reading that book yet. When you sat down to write your story, and then of course probably went to the editors, and then maybe you got it back and made some little changes. When you read your story after it was published, did you feel a sense of accomplishment? Like, what did you feel in that moment?
Like, I'm finally putting myself first. I'm finally realizing my dreams and creating the reality that I always wanted. I'm finally back to my true, authentic self, the person that got buried for 17 years within these marriages. And I became someone. I wasn't living my life. I was living their life. I gave up everything to be with these two people. and then I became someone I wasn't. And so when I always knew I was supposed to be a writer, I've written a lot of legal stuff, but that was, a long time ago. Um, but I did, and I kind of wrote it on post traumatic um, growth, which is what I'm doing right now, sharing the story. Like we can find resilience and strength and courage um, after everything that has been done to us. We can go and do good in the world. We can take our pain and transmute it into power.
I
And
love
so that's kind of what I wrote about.
that is amazing. And there I get the chills again. Yes, it is cold in the Northeast, but your words I know will inspire so many. Your courage will inspire many. Your willingness to sit with me and talk about your journey and share about forgiveness and everything that you went through is an inspiring story. Before we sign off, Stephany, can you tell us how my viewers and listeners can connect with you further?
Yeah, so right now I'm currently on LinkedIn and on Facebook. I'm not a coach and I'm not working one-on-one with anyone. I have taken the year off just for my kids to kind of hold space for them as they're still processing their father's death.
Mhm.
And I'm writing a series. So reach out. I will do my best. I can't give legal advice per se because there's all the different states, but I can try and point you towards the right directions. Um, but definitely connect with me on LinkedIn and Facebook because I want you to follow me so I can see what you're doing and you'll know when things are released.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. And of course, I will make sure all of your information is in the show notes. This has been an amazing conversation, and I hope you will definitely consider coming back again and sharing more insight and chatting about your books. We can't wait to learn more from you. Thank you so much for being here this evening, Stephany.
Thank you so much for having me. It really is an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Listen, I know that we all probably know someone out there who can really benefit from hearing Stephany's story, and I know that it will resonate with many of you. Please don't hesitate to reach out to her, and like she said, I'm sure she will try to get back in touch with you. Remember, if you have a story to share, someone is waiting to hear your story. Make sure you share it with the world so they can benefit from your story. My name is Janice Malillo, the host of Stories That Inspire Us. Wow, truly inspired by this amazing woman. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening and come back soon. Bye for now.